Well, I'm glad to be here, Steve. We do these once a week or so, Congressman, and a lot of you people have followed Congressman Billy Tauzin's career for a long time. So for some of you younger folks, Billy and I started off in the legislature together back in the 1970s when he was in the House and I was in the Senate. We worked on a number of pieces of legislation together. Billy was a key floor leader for the governor at the time in the House, and I was in the Senate. And he has a distinguished career just in Louisiana. Then he went on to be congressman, went up to Washington, D.C., and tried to shake things up a good bit and could talk for hours and hours about the good fight up there. And then he ended up the Pharmaceutical Association to get involved in this whole healthcare debate. And I hope we can talk about that now. And right now, he's a principal in Tauzin Consultants with his son and some other folks up in Washington, does a lot of consulting up there. And Billy, it's a real treat to have you back on the show. And before we start talking, though, about healthcare, I always thought you had a great book in you, and I really been meaning it. I published a lot of biographies of various major Louisiana officials, but I understand you're just about to finish up a book. Is that correct?
Sure, absolutely right, Jim. In fact, you missed one part of my career that probably had a bigger influence on me than even you, and that was the fact that I left Congress to fight the killer cancer. They gave me less than 1% chance to live, and instructions to give up my political career and head on down to Baltimore, Johns Hopkins, eventually to MD Anderson. And after a hell of a year, a fight, we finally beat it. And that's kind of why I ended up in the pharmaceutical industry. It was sort of a payback time for me. They saved my life without question, and I owed them my service, and I gave it to them for about 5.5 years. And now we're back in Washington with my son, doing a lot of young business development as well as representing some important companies in Washington, D.C.
And you've been very open about your fight with cancer, Billy. I remember coming to a reception for you at the old state capitol in Baton Rouge when you kind of made your comeback. You came roaring back, and there were throngs of people there. It was one of the bigger receptions I've ever attended there, of people that were so happy that you made a full recovery. You did so well. But I remember those very trying times about your big fight. Unbelievable what you went through, and now you're in good fighting form, and so we're glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you, and I am writing. I've been writing and posting on Facebook, where we are today, for quite a while. Interesting stories about our career together, Jim, in the legislature, Edwin Edwards, and those tumultuous days, and going on into the 25-year career in Washington, where, as you know, I served in the leadership of both political parties, and I have a lot of great insights as to what's right and what's wrong about the whole system up here. And I'm writing a book entitled Politics on the Yellow Brick Road. And it's an interesting title, and it comes from actually a conversation I had with a reporter when I was considering whether to leave the Democratic Party and join the Republican Party. And he asked me, about my mental attitude. How was I going to figure out where I belonged? And I remember telling him in jest something very unpolitical, certainly not PC. What I said was that, I felt like the little girl on the Yellow Brick Road. I had one hand in a party that desperately needed a brain and the other that desperately needed a heart. And neither one had much courage to change, and we had a good laugh over it. Probably offended both parties in the process. But the idea was that, that's the way a lot of people see the two parties. They see one as being not enough concerned about those in our country who are less fortunate, and the other, they see the party as being less intelligent about how to get this country growing again and how to create jobs and a good economy. So there's a lot of angst about both parties right now, I think, in America, as they see them, fighting instead of cooperating on important national goals. It has gotten as bad as I've ever seen it, and in the book I'm going to describe how we got there. And frankly, I'm going to offer some interesting ideas about how to get back to normal in America, because what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. is horribly abnormal right now. It is mean, it is ugly, it is hateful politics as I've ever seen it, and it's bringing this country down instead of lifting us up.